Hey, so can we talk about eye makeup for a minute? This is going to be the first part of a mini series that is my current makeup collection. It's part makeup collection, part makeup inventory, and part story time about my history with some of these items. Some of the makeup history may end up becoming their own separate videos depending on the length of this one. But I thought it would be a really good time to explore some of the makeup that I have, as well as my own thoughts about them. Since 2022 is my low buy year, I really want to take this as an opportunity to be able to get to know my collection a little better and to spend some of the time curating it. Alright, let's begin. I think we should begin with my eyeshadow collection because I think that is what is most fun for a lot of people, and also because I think there's a really exuberant abundance to what I currently have. I don't consider my collection particularly large. In fact, compared to a lot of YouTubers and I think even a lot of YouTube viewers, it's considered quite a small collection. But I do currently feel like it is a little much for what I need, and I would like to take an opportunity to curate them and to really get to know them a little better. Let's begin with my palettes. So I had decluttered a few palettes at the end of last year. So the ones that I have kept around are either really new or things that I truly love. But even before that declutter, I had never been a huge collector of makeup. I had never gotten into collecting the Anastasia palettes or the Urban Decay Naked palettes. But there is one exception to that rule, and it happens to be these beautiful little palettes from M Cosmetics, the Divine Skies eyeshadow palettes. I absolutely love these, and you cannot pry them away from my cold dead hands. Even if I am on a low buy, I am like 90% sure that I am going to spend one of my makeup items on a new Divine Skies eyeshadow palette if Michelle Phan were to come out with another one. I really love these. I really love how pigmented they are. I really love the formula of these. And perhaps most importantly, I really love the curated color stories. I think these are absolutely stunning in how they have been put together. And while some people might describe these as very boring, almost tart-like color stories, I think that is part of their charm. I think pink and brown make beautiful eye looks together. And this one, the Faded Clementine ones, is so rich and so pigmented and would be so flattering on so many different skin tones. In the Faded Clementine, I mostly use the shimmers on top of my lid, gently blended out like a one and done shadow, and in one of these more pigmented colors as a powdered liner. My favorite of the three happens to be Magic Hour, for a lot of different reasons. One of the main reasons is that it inspires a lot of the nostalgia when it comes to my makeup. My very first eyeshadow palette, if you can call it that, was the Strawberry Fudge Duo from Clinique. And they share a lot of the same colors and storyways, and I always loved that palette. I think my least favorite of the three has to be Venetian Rose, simply because it is so similar to Magic Hour. But I find that these tones are just a little more flattering on my skin than these. However, I still really love the Divine Rose. I use it as an accent palette and as a companion palette to Magic Hour. And I think these two work lovely and beautifully together. I would not get rid of either of these, and since they are both so new in my collection, I don't think I would have to for quite a while. I hope to keep on using my entire collection and to make sure that I love everything, somewhere between the Venetian Rose and the Magic Hour palette, because I truly enjoy using both of these, and it's always a joy in the morning when I get to choose which one I will put on my eyes. I also really love this palette, and it has a lot of the same colorways as the Magic Hour palette that I had just spoken about, particularly this shade, which is Pixie. It's that really classic pink gold shifting shimmer that is incredibly flattering on so many skin tones. I also really like this one that is just I use mostly as a glitter topper, and it shines beautifully. These are also the greens of my collection that I like to reach for. I think greens are a really lovely color, and I do expect it to be the next big major colorway in terms of trends. But these two fit best with my current makeup preferences. They're almost gray in their tones, and they're really subtle pop of color. I am really glad that if I had to get into collecting one company's eyeshadows, it would be M Cosmetics Divine Skies, because I cannot imagine getting into the collector's mentality about Natasha Denona. I simply don't have the funds for it. I also think that while I really love the eye color stories of a lot of these mini collections, I'm far less inspired by the larger palettes, be they the midi or the large palettes. When I saw the midi version of the Glam palette, I was really quite shocked because I was expecting more of these greens and almost neutral warm pinks and how they would combine together. I did not expect that almost mauvey purplish palette that we got in response. I think that this palette is a really great taste of Natasha Denona, but I'm also glad to kind of leave it at that, to have the one that is perfect for me and my taste, and to not get into the collector's mentality when I know that there will probably never be one that tops this. The only one that was ever close to topping this palette for me was the Lila one, and I believe the mini Lila has been recently discontinued. I heard that the quality of the mini Lila wasn't nearly up to par when it comes to the rest of these mini palettes. So I'm glad that I had made the decision, and for the rest of this Lowbuy year, I really don't think I'm going to be tempted to pick up another one when I already have this one in my collection. And the reason why I know what I said about the Natasha Denona palettes is that I have this one from Etude, which is the Dusty Cat palette, which I got at the end of last year. I was really tempted by the Natasha Denona Glam palette because of those cool tones and the fact that everyone talks about how the metallics are absolutely beautiful. But here's what I've realized, especially while using the Dusty Cat palette. While most people talk about how pigmentation and these really smooth swatches are desirable, I find that the Asian formulas that prioritizes a smooth blend and a subtle wash actually does work better for my monolids. And I guess I should have known that, considering that these were eyeshadows that were specifically designed for Asian eye shapes. I find that if I were to use a really dense metallic swatch on top of my eyelids, they would often end up looking extremely swollen. And I think that it has 100% to do with the shape of my eyelids. If you have a really defined crease and fold on your eyes, I think you would want to accentuate your eyelids and to really bring it forward using the manipulation of light and color and pigmentation and temperature. But for my eyelids, which are monolids, if I were to do that, I would really look quite swollen and ill. These soft washes of color help to instead shape my eyes using things like temperature and color. And the sparkles, these really sheer glitter top coats, help to define eyes without making it look swollen, because these distinct, disparate particles make it very clear that it is eye makeup with beautiful shine that isn't trying to create an entire different space on top of my eyelid. I really appreciate this palette for that, and I am really glad I chose it over the Natasha Denona Glam palette, even the Mini Glam, which I had been considering for the longest time. I think I could still stand to use this a little bit more. It is one of the newer palettes in my collection, but for now, I'm glad to just have it around, especially since every time I see those little kitty paws, it makes me smile. I have one last pre-designed palette in my collection, and to be completely honest, I'm kind of ashamed of it because I never wanted to support Morphe. But here's the thing, I love Cherry Coke, and when I saw this palette with its metal tin and its layout, I really thought that it was going to be something like the Too Faced palettes. If I'm being completely honest, the quality isn't bad. In fact, I really like quite a lot of the shades in here. Once again, here is that pink gold shade that I am obsessed with and seem to find in every single one of my palettes. This particular shimmery topper shade has a lot of the qualities that I'm looking for. It has that sheer pigmentation that really accentuates the eyes, especially when you blend it out. And I honestly like a lot of these colors. But while I am glad that I didn't spend too much money on this particular palette, it still does make me feel just a little icky, knowing that I supported Morphe, whom I had never really been that into. I didn't even bother really playing with a lot of these mattes for that exact same reason. I just couldn't bring myself to really prioritize it in my collection when I have those beautiful M Cosmetics palettes that make me feel so much more joy. Still, I had already spent my money on it, and I would like to get to know it just a little bit better. And if I still can't get over the feelings after maybe a year, I think it might be time to pass it on to someone else. Another reason why I never really got into the Morphe Cherry Coke shadow is because I have quite a few singles inside of my collection, and I have had them way before I had bothered getting them from Morphe. I keep them in these tiny little palettes, and I think there is a lot to play with when it comes to these shadows. Of particular note are these pinky purple ones that you have already seen in the Cherry Coke palette. These two are from ColourPop. I believe one is Paradiso and the other one is Latchkey. They are wonderfully pigmented. I think the ColourPop formula is really lovely. If you have seen ColourPop releases of their last couple of years, you probably already seen these colors. I think they make their appearances every few months, particularly when we have a collection centered around wine. I really like these colors, but I honestly prefer a cooler purple in comparison to these. I think that's partially because these colors have just a little bit too much red in them, and I don't really have the blue or green eyes that could pop from using these colors. I very much took inspiration from these two colors from that original Tati palette, and that's also why I included this one. It's a moon dust shadow from Urban Decay, so there's quite a bit of micro glitters inside of it, and it flashes blue when it is applied on the skin. It has that same pink base, but on certain lights you can really see it flash this bright, vibrant electric blue color. I think that's why the camera is having trouble picking it up, because all of those colors together are really starting to merge together. I did a pretty bad job depotting it, to be completely honest, which is why it's looking a little messed up on the edges. But I think it's a really lovely formula, and for the longest time, and considering picking up another color, specifically Space Cowboy, because I think that is very much the fan favorite here on YouTube. I'm not going to pick it up for a few different reasons you're going to see, but I really like the curated story of this particular palette. I still have one more space, and if I were to ever get a chance, I think I might put in a black so I could really play around with it. But for now, this is a really nice, solid little curated collection, and it's the reason why I don't really reach for that Cherry Coke palette. I like to eventually make a decision whether I just want to keep this one and get rid of the Cherry Coke palette, or if I want to use the Cherry Coke palette in conjunction, or if there are ways for me to love both for very different reasons. Stay tuned for that. This palette, however, is definitely my pride and joy. Maybe not for usage, but definitely for the colors. I love purple, and you're going to see that throughout my collection. I particularly love cool tone purples and purples that have a lot of blue inside of it. So that would be these two, also from ColourPop. I think these ones are called Fault Line, and I believe this one is called Eris. These are some of my favorite colors to use and play with, even though I don't always wear them outside. I particularly love Fault Line because of its blue shift, which isn't always visible, but a lot of fun to play with at every opportunity. I really enjoy Eris's quality because I do think it creates quite a bit of punch when you layer it on the skin, especially if you were to put a sticky primer underneath. This is absolutely my favorite color, as you're going to see, and I will sometimes layer it on top of a purple liner to really make it pop. Here is a really cool trick that I like to play with when it comes to Fault Line, and that is to combine it with a mint green in order to create a pale, almost seafoam blue. This particular mint green is the Pisces from ColourPop, and it's the color that he's continuously turned out with every horoscope collection. I got the single back when they first released it with Kathleen Lights, and ever since then I never felt the need to pick up any of the horoscopes collection because I already had the Star Shade. My favorite thing to do is to combine it with Fault Line and to mix the two together on my eyes to create this almost bluish color that is really hard to describe. It's one of my favorite colors to wear because is it blue, is it green, is it purple? And the answer is yes, all of them. There's just enough muddiness to really make you question it, and when you are not sure, it almost reads gray, so it's neutral enough for you to play with in all of these different ways. One of these days, I want to layer Pisces with my Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. I think this particular bright green will play really well with the duskier khaki greens. But I think that's the whole point of this Lowbuy year, isn't it? To get an opportunity to really enjoy what it is that I already have in my collection. And to realize that maybe I don't need all of these new colors that the market keeps on telling me that I need. As I mentioned, I really love these purples, and so that is why I had made the specific decision to pick up at the end of the year Wild Wisteria from Phytosurgeons. It is the only thing that I own from Phytosurgeons, and I really, really love it. It is, to be completely honest, my perfect purple eyeshadow. It's amazingly pigmented. It is the perfect color, and there's just enough of a bit of a blue shift in certain lights for me to layer it with Fault Line from ColourPop, my single shadow. I think mine is getting a little dry even though I just gotten it, so I really want to be careful with it. But I think that it will also rehydrate really well with something like Duraline, which I do have inside of my collection. For now, I'm just enjoying it. I love it as a sheer wash of color on my eyes, as a gentle pop of color whenever it is that I'm about to go to work. Alongside Phytosurgeons, I also have a few other single shadows, including the color Coconut from ColourPop. I had gotten Coconut, this beautiful dark rich blue, the same time I had gotten this dark navy single shadow, and it was because I really wanted the Victoria Beckham shade in Midnight, but I couldn't justify spending that much money on one, a single shadow, and two, one of those insane shipping fees in order for me to use them. So instead, I wanted to see if there was a way for me to kind of mix together my own version of Midnight. And this was kind of what I came up with. So here is Coconut from ColourPop. It's a little green in my opinion. And then this one is from the Sephora collection. I want to say it's Astro Moon or something like that. I had depotted it basically the moment I got it. It swatches alright on its own, but it is absolutely beautiful when layered on top of the coconut shade. I really like to pack it on to add in some of that richness and that coolness into the blue. And the result, I think, is pretty indistinguishable from Midnight from Victoria Beckham. I keep the two together because I don't think I could get them the effect I want from Midnight on their own. But I really don't mind because I want to say that the two combined was not even $20 as opposed to Victoria Beckham, which I think is quite a pretty penny. Way more money than I would be willing to spend on a single eyeshadow. I am wary of this particular hack because there have been instances in the past where I wanted something, so I bought the cheaper alternatives and I played with it until I finally gave in and bought the most expensive version. But because I wear blue so very rarely, I think these will be enough to kind of hold me over until that desire to get the Victoria Beckham one is finally finished. I had gotten Coconut at the same time I had gotten these three. I had a few ColourPop shadows in the past, but I had to declutter them because they were all starting to dry out. I also placed the order because I really wanted these two from their NKLA collaboration, Much About You and You're Kidding Me. Years ago, they had a pair also in collaboration with NKLA that were called Puppy Love and Catnap, and the colors were extremely similar. I loved Puppy Love. It was this pale gold that could be used as a highlighter, that could be used to brighten your inner corners, and was absolutely stunning to be swiped on top of the lid. This isn't the same formula. I know that for a fact because it's a little more yellow gold and also because there are a lot more shimmery particles running through it. The shimmery / glittery particles are even more obvious in You're Kidding Me, which is a similar color to Catnap, but might have been a bit more rich and a bit more deep, and definitely has a lot more sparkle to it. I understand why ColourPop isn't bringing back the original colors, but I do miss it terribly. And I think that if they're going to bring it back, now would be the time, because it has been quite a few years. I'm guessing most people have already either decluttered theirs or have already used up theirs or had theirs dry out. I think the new glitter formula is absolutely gorgeous, especially when you use it as a one and done shadow all over the lid. But there's something that is really nostalgic and pretty about the last formula, and I would like to see them again. Maybe instead of these little puppy and kitty faces, they can also bring back the little paw stamp on top. If I can find the container that I had emptied out and kept around, I'll definitely show it on camera if you're interested. But I had definitely scraped out the color years ago, because as much as I love these, I do value my eye health just a little bit more. One day though, maybe we'll see them again to have a little fun. Finally, I have the color Ritz, which everyone talked about as a dupe for Urban Decay's Space Cowboy. That's why I mentioned while swatching my one Moon Dust shadow that I didn't need the Urban Decay one. This one's also definitely the softest and freshest of all of the ones that I own, and it has a beautiful shimmery top coat to it. I don't think it has quite as much dimension as Space Cowboy, but for now, this is all that I really need to be able to use. It creates the most beautiful wet look for sure, and I love tapping it on top of whatever it is that I'm wearing. In a similar vein to Ritz, I have this single shadow from Romand. I believe it is in the shade Moonlight, and it was one of their Galaxy shadows. I got this right before they started running out of stock, because I think it was a Christmas release a couple years back. I really enjoy it. It gives me a lot of the same effects as Ritz, but whereas Ritz is much more silvery in its reflex, I find that Moonlight is much warmer, so I tend to use it with my more golden / peachy shadows, while I use Ritz more with my cooler pinky shadows. I really love all of these, and I think they create the most gorgeous effect when put together. I don't have a huge eyeshadow collection because I am not really an artist of eye colors. I think these two palettes from Kaleidos are as close as I will get to really playing with that kind of eye colors. These two, which have been spotted all over social media, are Lunar Lavender and Sashimi City. As I mentioned before, I have a bit of an obsession with the color purple, and Lunar Lavender is basically my definition of a perfect palette. Just look at those beautiful shining colors, and the way the browns that have been paired together with these are absolutely gorgeous. Just look at those shine. When the purple blush trend really started taking off on TikTok, I used the combination of these two mattes as a blush, and I can say that these two colors definitely make a beautiful blush when swatched together. However, even though I really enjoyed it, I didn't feel a need to turn it into my only blush. So if I ever do feel like I need to wear purple blush again, I think I'll just use these eyeshadow colors. No need to buy entire purple blush. I really love these two browns for adding a bit of definition, not always as outer corner deepeners or even lash line deepeners, but definitely as a shadow wing. Sometimes I'll use these to set the eyeliner that I'm already using. As for Sashimi City, these are beautiful neutrals that kind of supplement the more pinky neutrals that I have quite a few of. I bought this, not gonna lie, partially for the name. I love the idea of little sushi houses in Sashimi City. This is very much when I want neutrals to be known. I love the shift that is available, the gold and green that become so incredibly enriched whenever you swatch them on your skin. I use this yellow as a crease/transition color when I don't want to go that pinky color that is inside of so many of my palettes. But I very much view this also as a supplementary palette. I don't think that I necessarily need more than this one. Back when everyone was talking about the Melt Cosmetics palettes with that beautiful mustard brown, I managed to resist. And I feel like this is my little reward back to myself to be able to use that color without feeling like I am missing out. And those are all of my eyeshadows. I think I have a decent size collection. I don't think I need any more. And yet I am always tempted by new ones that come out. Right now I have my eyes on one by ZC called the Tipsy Kitty. I don't love the outer packaging, but I love the little stamps that they put on the shadows on the inside, which, to be completely honest, is the worst reason to buy an eyeshadow palette. As I have mentioned with the Dusty Cat palette, I love the little kitty paws that have been indented. But even though I'm fairly light with my usage of eyeshadows, these are going to eventually disappear, especially if I were to pan this palette, as I will want to do one day. I am going to try to resist it for a little bit longer, but I would not be surprised if I do eventually get the ZC Tipsy Kitty palette one of these days as one of the options that I have during this low buy. But for now, I'm going to enjoy this dusty little cat, this little kitten eyeshadow, and try to enjoy the colors that I have already bought to keep on curating my collection so I can enjoy what I have. Alright. Before I move on to the rest of my collection, I feel like I should talk about some of my tools. Like everyone has always seen, I have the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer in its original form. This is one of those little sample sizes, and to be completely honest, it has lasted me quite a while. I am just about done using it, and I'm very excited to be able to have a little product that is already panned. For me, this is the ideal size of eyeshadow primers. It is just enough for you to use, but you don't have to worry about it going bad. Once this particular sample is finished, I'm going to move on to my Kaleidos Tone Activator Eye Primer. For me, it is basically identical to the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer, except it is just a little thinner and it is a little darker. I want to get started on using this as soon as possible because I really want to be able to pan an entire eyeshadow primer before I move on to the next. It's a little runnier, it's a little darker in its tone, but I do find that it does a really good job canceling out everything underneath and to really make the colors pop. I actually like this slightly dark color because it is the same color that I want my eyeshadow to slowly bring my eye shape to. Or it's a little darker and adds a little bit more definition, but it's not quite enough for me for it to get noticed. I think if you were to be a lot lighter or if you are a lot darker, you may want to double check about how it plays on others similar to your own skin tone. But I really do enjoy it, and I look forward to using it next to really be able to place my priorities and focus on it. I also have glitter glue. Because of all of those shimmery, sparkly eyeshadows that I have, I knew that I wanted to have at least a little bit of glitter glue on my lids, just so I am not getting fallout everywhere on my skin. I think it's a really great tool to have, and I think the next one is pretty perfect. I am actually having trouble finding glitter primers in a lot of places, including Sephora. I'm not sure why. Maybe it has something to do with supply chain issues. But for now, I have quite a bit of this left, so I'm not too worried about it. Finally, I have Inglot Duraline. I got this because I have heard that it's the best rehydrator for ColourPop shadows. I think I got that conclusion by watching the beauty news channel, and they ran a whole bunch of experiments to see which one was best. I also keep this one around because I have two pigments from MAC. These are the mini travel size that cost about $14-16 Canadian, in rose and blue brown. I like to turn these into liquid liners, and I like to just tap them on my lids whenever I need a little bit of fun duochrome actions. When this Lowbuy is over, or when I have room in my schedule for another purchase, I might consider getting some of the Clionadh multi-chrome shadows because they are just so pretty. But for now, I'm going to have fun with these. Hey, look, once again, it's that pink gold shift that I keep talking about. Remind me to give you that story time about where my love for that particular color come from one of these days. Speaking of eyeliners, I have quite a few of them. So even though I don't wear a lot of eyeshadows, I do like to use eyeliners and stick eyeshadows in order to add a little bit of extra definition around my eyes. So these are the famous or infamous caviar sticks from Laura Mercier. And I don't know what to say other than I think they are fine. I don't think they're particularly life-changing in a way that I think some people really make them out to be. And I very much blame that on marketing. This one is the color Strapless. It's one of the Sephora birthday gifts this year. And if you are a fan of YouTube, I feel like we're going to see a lot of this particular shade of caviar stick show up over in people's collections over the next little while. I think it's a perfectly fine taupey brown that is going to be really flattering for a lot of people. I think it has just enough metallics and just enough depth to really add some interest to the eyes, but it is by no means life-changing. And that's very much how I feel about all of these caviar sticks. Amethyst, which has always been a cult favorite, is really just a taupey, purpley brown. It is a little bit darker than Strapless, but when smudged out, it has a very similar effect. I sometimes think about what Hannah Louise Poston says about how once you get your hands on a makeup item, you realize that it's just a makeup item. For the longest time, I had really built up amethyst as this perfect purple color for defining the eyes, and I realize now that it simply isn't so. I'm glad that I chose to spend it on the trio during the holidays rather than buying an entire stick of it, because even though these are minis, this is a lot of eyeshadow for me to go through. I think of something very similar when it comes to these two colors. I think I'll use them more because they are these very wearable tones. Copper is this bright but extremely useful color that is exactly as its name implied, coppery. It's a little warmer than I usually go for, but I like using it as a base for the shadows in my Faded Clementine palette. But the one that I use the most has to be Cocoa, and it is just this perfectly utilitarian brown matte. I like to smudge it on my lash line, use a brush to kind of drag it out into a little wing, and then go over it with my liquid liner to really add that true definition. It's a good color, but I don't know if it's life-changing. I think that's the whole crux of makeup in general. None of it is life-changing. It's just meant to be something fun that you can apply on your face. And when you really build it up and use it as a crutch, it starts losing a lot of its magic. I think I wouldn't ever repurchase these particular caviar sticks. I can't with the strapless one since it's an exclusive color to Sephora this year, but I don't think I would repurchase these either. Considering they came in a set that came out to about $30, each one of these is about $10, which isn't that much more than an average drugstore liner here in Canada, but I don't think I like these more than these from McQueen, which is a K-beauty brand. These brown liners run for about $6 Canadian, and if you can find them, usually on Yes Style or Stylevana, I think they are even better quality because they do not budge once you get them onto your eyes. I actually think that they smudge out a little bit better than the caviar sticks because they are truly eyeliners. The color that I had just shown you is 07 or a heroin. And the next one, which is probably comparable to being somewhere between cocoa and copper, is number 3. I believe this one is French Latte. I think this quality is absolutely amazing. They do not budge even on monolids, and once they set, they are truly set. They have beautiful pigmentation and they are so smooth when they go on and just as smooth when they get blended out. This one, which is number 5, I want to say Sakura Latte, is a perfect inner corner highlight because you can sharpen it, you can get it to a really nice point to be used on your eyelid, and it smudges out into a really nice shadow and base. This one is my most used, believe it or not. This one is number 1 Smoky Roasting Latte, and it is just a really good black. I had actually already finished one of these, and I have every intent on finishing up this one too. Look at that perfect black liner. Once they are put on, they do not budge. You have just a few seconds to smudge it out before they will last all day. But I think my favorite detail about these is that they dissolve beautifully with cleansing balms. I have one more. I think this is far more easy for people to get here in the West because it's from L'Oreal. It's one of their infallible liners, and this one is in lilac. This is the base that I put on when I really want my purple shadows to pop. I think because of color theory, it's really easy for purple colors to get canceled out by people's skin tones. So having that additional layer that really gets to set down and stay put is a really good insurance. It gets a little patchy sometimes when I draw it onto my eyes, but as you can see on my skin, it's really quite smooth, which I think speaks to its natural quality. It's a little harder to get it like this on my eyes, but that's why I put shadow all over it. As I mentioned before, I have an obsession with purple, and that definitely comes through with all of these eyeliners. These 3 I got right as Marc Jacobs was wrapping up its current season, its current, vendor system. So I got these at a pretty steep discount. I think they were only about $15 when I got these because they were going to stop stocking these. I got the 3 colors that I was most interested in. So this one is Grapevine, and it's a dark purple that I absolutely adore. Sometimes I'll pair it with the lilac from L'Oreal, so I'll have this as a base for a purple shadow, make sure to blend it out, draw on this very thin line with Grapevine, and then define it just underneath it with a black liquid liner. I also have Fine Wine, which goes really well with that Morphe palette and my self-created palette with those really warm, rich burgundy-esque purples. I also really like this color, and for me it is a great tool to kind of add some additional definition, especially on the lower lash line since I don't have a lot of lid space. And finally, we have Dove Affair. It's a fairly light one, so it's not as dark as a black liner, but there's just enough depth to really create some definition. I really love the undertones of this liner. It is just a little cool, a little purple, a little taupey, so it's really flattering when you use it on the eyes. And finally, I have my liquid liner. If I have to choose between applying liquid liner or applying mascara because I only have a few seconds left in my makeup routine, I always go for liquid liner. I particularly love the Clio formula because they do not move once they are on your eyes. I also really like the color selection. It's a really good brown and a really good rich black color. These are monolith tested and designed in Asia, so you know that they are really great additions to your collection. I also really like the brush. I am a big brush tip fan. I prefer them to felt tips because I like being able to clean them out. If I were to have a shadow, particularly if it were to include something like glitter particles, I make sure to clean it out by rubbing it on a napkin or one of those microfiber towels, just so we can make sure it's clean. Then I will cap it up, shake it to load it again, and to be ready to prepare it for the next time that you use it. I have no backups for my eyeliners right now because I have recently just opened these, but I think I want to try even more Asian formulas. I have my eyes on Peri Para, and I might bring them in as backups for when these two do run dry. But I do have a little bit of time since these are fairly fresh, and I look forward to using it. Finally, I have the MAC Brush Black eyeliner. I bought this, not gonna lie, because it was a collaboration with Lisa from Blackpink. I really love Lisa. She's definitely my bias, though Rosé is a bias wrecker. I also really love the design of this pen. I love the dark purple. I love the gold signature. I think it's also a pretty good eyeliner. I don't think it lasts quite as well on me as the Clio ones because it does occasionally smudge when I have a particularly oily routine or when I have been wearing it for extra hours. But it is a really good liner. I think for most people they'll be more than satisfied with its performance. I just have really picky monolids, and it's really hard to find one that lasts all day. I wouldn't repurchase this simply because of its price, but I do enjoy it for what it currently is, and I'll keep it right now as part of my rotation until it is all used up. For now, I'm very happy with this collection. I do want to use up some of these eyeshadow sticks over the next little while, but I am not too worried. I think they all have their own place, and I would like to eventually pan them because they bring me joy, not because any of these feel redundant inside of my collection. Finally, we have the brows and mascara, and I have a pretty good sized collection in my opinion. I have a couple of backups, and we'll talk even more about them in a little bit. But here are the items that I am currently using for my brows. They all serve slightly different purposes, so I am not worried about having all four. But let me just quickly walk you through them and my plans for the future. My favorite items are definitely these two from M Cosmetics. I realize that this is starting to become a little bit of unpaid simping for M Cosmetics, but I really do think that they just make quality products with incredible intelligence when it comes to color. I have the shade Dark Taupe when it comes to the fine liner brow pencil, and I have the shade Universal Taupe for the Microfluff Sculpting Brow Cream. I love these for the formula and the color, and I think that is really how you get a perfect brow product. For the fine liner brow pencil, Deep Taupe is really nice and cool and ashy, which is what I need for my hair because it's really dark, but it's also a really cool black. Cool as in temperature, not cool as in the style. I like to think it's pretty cool even with its current style, but since you can't see my face, you really can't tell. I also really love the Microfluff Sculpting Brow Cream because of its brush. Like Deep Taupe in the brow pencil, this one's also nice and cool. But even more importantly, with the current little brush, you're able to almost draw on some of the hairs when you get quite a bit of the brow product. As you can see, I'm starting to run out, which is why I have that backup in my stash already. I think it's a really lovely product for you to use in order to shape your brow hairs. Far better than a lot of the other brow creams that are on the market. And I am comparing this brow cream to something like the Boy Brow. I have mine in clear because I already have a colored brow gel. But while I think this is a really great shaper, I don't love the brush because it's a little bit chunkier than what you get inside of the brow cream. I mean, just look at that difference between the two. I also think that if I were to get a completely clear brow gel, I would get something a little cheaper because the Boy Brow, even though it's not incredibly expensive like something like the Givenchy brow cream, I do think that it is a bit much for what you're getting. I have a few Glossier products, but while I think they're good and I'll keep them in my rotation, I think my ultimate goal is to pan them and to enjoy them for their worth, but not necessarily buy them again. That's the same attitude that I have towards the Urban Decay Brow Blade. I have mine in the shade Cool Cookie because again, I'm looking for something really dark but also really ashy, which is a really hard combination to find actually. This one comes with two ends, the waterproof pencil as well as the ink stain, and I use these two very much as a supplementary tool to what it is that I need to do, which is fill in my brows and to just add a little bit of color and definition. I think if I were to have the money to buy this again, I would repurchase this color because it is very cool and ashy, but I think I would also just like to focus my money on products I really love. And so between this and the fine liner brow pencil from M Cosmetics, I'm always going to choose the fine liner from M Cosmetics simply because it's a little bit easier to use. I'll enjoy this while I have it, and if I ever got the opportunity, I think I will get it again, particularly the shade Cool Cookie. But until then, I am going to keep them as they are. I also have two other products when it comes to my brows, and they are kind of more exceptions than the rule. These are things that I very much consider tools rather than products that I use regularly. The first one is the Anastasia Brow Powder in Ash Brown. Same problem as before. I wanted something really dark and really cool tone, and I think Ash Brown was the closest fit that I got to it. I really do enjoy this product, and from what I've heard from everyone, these two powders are going to last forever. And I'm very much looking forward to it. As you can see, one side definitely swatches a little bit better, and I prefer the slightly lighter side when it comes to filling in my brows. My only problem with this is that I don't love busting out a brow brush, like a spoolie or an angled brush to fill in my brows every time. So I only bring this out when I know that I have time to fill it in and I really want the effect that powder can give me. I think this is going to stay in my collection for quite a while and I will use it, but I don't plan on repurchasing it, nor will I need to for quite a long time. And finally, we have the NYX Full and Fluff Brow Wax. This is a clear wax, and I will use it usually with the Anastasia Brow Powder to lay down a slightly sticky base for me to be able to use them. Other than that, it's a completely normal wax, what you would expect. It's clear, it gets the job done, it's decent. Again, I don't use it often. But here's the real reason why I bought this. When I saw the Fenty brow stuff get launched, I really wanted to try it because of its little toothbrush style brush as opposed to normal spoolie. I scoured the internet for something that could serve as a dupe, and I found this NYX brow pencil. Oh, what are you doing here? Glossier, are you here as a comparison? Because let's take a look between what we normally think of as a spoolie, which is all completely round, versus this toothbrush-ish brow comb that is on the back of the NYX Film and Fluff Brow Wax, as well as on the back of all of your Fenty brow pencils. I actually do really like it. I think it does a really good job smoothing down your brow hairs, particularly if they're really stubborn, because this is almost working like a hairbrush. But I realized, having bought this, I am pretty lazy and I really want things to be convenient. And it is just so much more convenient to be able to go to the other end of your brow brush, of your brow product, and to just use whatever spoolie is attached instead of reaching for another tool, even if it does look cool. I'll eventually use up this entire product, I have no doubt, but I do think it serves a valuable lesson. And when this is eventually going to be clear, I'll keep it around for that little brush, just so I am not tempted by the Fenty brow products again. But I think that's very much the core of this low buy here, to enjoy what I have, to use up what I have, and to be able to keep around the things I really enjoy. But also to learn the lesson that I don't need what is always the newest or the most interesting. Instead, I just need things that I will actually use and things that I know will work. I usually keep this particular brow pencil in this little tin. I call it my tools tin because it also includes the other product that I bought as a tool that I don't use often, but I do really enjoy having around in my collection. And that is this brown mascara. I have quite a few black mascaras, and because my hair is so dark, I do prefer a black mascara. But on the occasions that I do want a brown mascara, I really didn't want to have one sitting around going bad, and I didn't want to have one that I would have to eventually throw away because I don't use it that often. I bought this partially because it was a dupe for the Hourglass one, and partially because of what it was trying to do, which is this metal brush. I like the idea of being able to sanitize my brown mascara to hopefully keep it around a little bit more, and to be able to eventually just replace the bottom part but not the brush, to hopefully cut back on waste. I rarely wear this mascara on its own. I'll almost always layer it on top of another black mascara just to tint it a little bit black. I think it is light enough and rich enough that it's able to really benefit from it. But I also think that it is a really great supplementary tool. I don't recommend everyone go out and get one of these metal mascaras. I really don't think that it is necessary for most people. And if you are someone who loves brown eyelashes, it might be in your best interest to do your own research and your own calculations to see if getting a normal brown mascara might be the best case for you. But for now, I really enjoyed this, and I keep this in this little tin along with my other brow products, and I use it whenever I feel the need to. I'm not saying that I am perfect or that this is a great system, but for now and what I have, this definitely works. Here are the mascaras that I actually do use regularly. I have the Lash Slick from Glossier, and I have the Pick Me Up mascara from M Cosmetics. I love how these two look together, both in the tube and also on the lashes. M Cosmetics and Glossier are both tubing formulas, so they work really well together, and I like what they are able to do for my lashes. Since almost all other mascaras smudge on me, finding tubing mascaras that don't are really kind of a fantastic discovery for me. The M Cosmetics one, with its comb-like brush, creates a lot of really nice volume for me, even on my small Asian lashes. It's light enough that it doesn't weigh it down, but it's enough to really create the dramatic effects that I want. And it is surprisingly buildable for what it is, which is usually a shortcoming of a lot of tubing mascaras. I like to layer M Cosmetics mascara on first to really build up that volume, and then using the lash slick to help brush it out. I find that the lash slick have just a little bit more fiber. It helps to create just a little bit more length, but because of how its brush is laid out, I am able to create just some more definition on my eyes because I'm really able to separate every single one of my lashes. I think I would probably repurchase the M Cosmetics one. I hope that they will re-release those minis that they had in their holiday sets, because I rarely go through an entire mascara. In fact, I often have to throw these away because I don't trust them on my eyes, even though I still have plenty of products. For me, mini mascaras are kind of the perfect size for what it is that I want out of my mascara. So I hope that eventually I'll have the opportunity to just buy the mini ones instead of these big ones. As for the Glossier Lash Slick, as much as I like it, I don't think I would repurchase it. I think it's a really great tool, just like the Boy Brow, but I'm going to enjoy it while I have it, but not spend additional money on buying another one of these when I run out. And that's partially because I already have my next selection of mascaras. These ones are getting towards the end of their lifespan. So I have these ones from Totally Tubular. Oh, no, I think the brand is Half Caked, and these are the Totally Tubular mascara. They're also tubing mascaras, and from what I have heard, they're meant to be dupes of a lot of the really popular ones that are on the market. I have it in the style The Ultimate and The Heights. I believe The Heights is a lengthening mascara, and The Ultimate is kind of an all-rounder. I look forward to trying these out because they might be really good, more affordable versions than my other mascaras. But at the same time, I only switch out my mascaras about every 6 months, which is a little longer than you're supposed to, but I think it's a really good balance between how much mascara I use versus a really good, safe time for your eyes. So I am not too worried about replacing these. I'm pretty good about making sure I only have a few mascaras lying around because, again, I prefer to define my eyes with eyeliner rather than mascara. I also have one waterproof one from Clio. It's in the same style as my favorite eyeliners. I actually think these are the super waterproof ones. Apparently you can layer waterproof mascaras with your tubing mascaras, and it'll just help make things both extra waterproof, but you can also wash it off in those really satisfying little tubes. I think I'll probably open up this one next, probably have it overlap with some of my already existing tubing mascaras, and to see how it works. And then I will open up one of these half-caked mascaras once these two have to be disposed of because they have been around for a bit too long. I don't like to keep more than 2 mascaras open at one time, so I am pretty set for the next year-ish. But once I do open up all of these backup ones, I will let you know what I choose as my next replacement when it comes to all of these mascaras. As I have already mentioned, the only other backups that I have kept around when it comes to these eye products are one M Cosmetics Fine Liner Pencil, again in Deep Taupe, and one more brow cream because I am almost out. I tend to find that I go through brow pencils faster than I do brow creams, But one of these days, I do think I have to make another M Cosmetics order, even though the duties are so expensive, just so I can make sure that I am able to keep stocked up on my favorite brow products. And I think that's it. Those are all of my eye makeup options. I think it's a decently sizable collection, and I would like to spend some focus over the next year on using up quite a few of these products. I think some of these will be used very organically and naturally, such as the mascaras, but I also want to place some focus on things like my caviar sticks, because they are not going to last forever, and I do want to use them while I can, sometimes as their own eyeshadows and sometimes as bases for other eye looks. I have such an abundance of all of this eye makeup, yet I will fully admit that this is one of the areas that I am always tempted by. So we'll see how I go on this low-buy journey when it comes to all of these items, and I will keep you updated. I look forward to seeing how all of my items end up changing near the end of the year. Until then, I hope to see you around. See you in my next video. Bye.